In this lesson, we are going to learn about long division. We have kind of touched on this earlier in the year, but not all kids were required to do it at the time. Now we are learning this to get you ready for college algebra, whether that's a class you take at the high school level or a class you take in college. For those of you going on to calculus, you will do this in calculus also. So most of you will be using this again. Before we do long division, I'm just going to give us a little quick grade school reminder. So this isn't in your notes, I just want you to kind of follow along with this. If you remember doing this in grade school, if I was going to take 334 divided by 5, make our long division chart, right? And we ask ourselves, how many times does 5 go into 3? So we'd always look at this first digit here. Well, we all know 5 doesn't go into 3. So when that happens, we would move then to the 2 digits. So how many times does 5 go into 33? We would say 5 goes into 33 6 times, because 5 times 6 is 30. And then we go here, and what do we do with these two numbers? We subtract them, right? So I'd say, okay, it doesn't go in fully, 5 doesn't go into 6 or into 33 perfectly, we would say, or something like that, evenly, sometimes kids will say. And so then I have 30, and I'd have 3 left over. And then instead of doing anything with this 3, I always would bring down that next digit. So I'd bring down the 4, and you say, how many times does 5 go into 34? 5 goes into 34 6 times. 5 times 6 is 30, and then we subtract here. If your teacher had to do decimals, you would keep going here. So then you'd say, okay, 0.0, and you keep going. That's not actually going to happen to us today. So instead of doing decimals, we're going to write these as a fraction. So when we get a remainder, our remainder is what's left over out of the 5 that we divided by. So this answer would be 66 4/5. So if I take 66 4/5 times 5, I should get 334. So that's what you did in grade school, middle school. You had to do that by hand. You haven't done that in a while because you use your calculator now. But the same principles apply to when we do it with variables. So I'm dividing x squared plus 2x minus 24 by x minus 4. In class, we use synthetic division for this. So that's what you're used to using. I'm going to now require you to do long division. So the first thing you do is you look at this x and this x squared, and I say, how many times can x go into x squared? Or what times x would make x squared? So hopefully you see that that's x. And then what I have to do here is distribute this x to both of these terms. So I'd say x times x is x squared. X times a negative 4 is negative 4x. Now remember, at this point, I didn't add, I subtracted, didn't I? So I'm going to have to change both of these signs every time. And we'll see that these x squareds now cancel, and I would have 6x, and then I bring down the minus 24. Then I ask myself, what times x would make 6x? Positive 6, so I'm going to go plus 6. And again, I'm going to distribute this now to both of those. So I'd say 6 times x is 6x. 6 times a negative 4 is negative 24. Remember, we change those signs because we're subtracting. And this would be my remainder. It divided evenly. So when I ask what my answer to the problem is, it is this x plus 6. That's the answer. If you wanted to check your work, you could take the two numbers here that you did division and use multiplication because it should equal what you divided by. So x minus 4 times x plus 6 should be x squared plus 2x minus 24. So when I FOIL that out, I do get x squared plus 2x minus 24. And there's my answer. So this is my answer. This was my check. Okay? We're going to do several of these to kind of get the hang of it. Number 2, they have the problem x cubed minus 6x squared plus 1 divided by x plus 2. So when I write this out, I have my x plus 2 here, and I make my division bar. And now this one's a little bit different because I have x cubed and then 6x squared. And remember in synthetic division, when there wasn't a spot for a place value, we'd say it has to have x cubed, x squared, and x and a 1. We always put a 0 in. The same thing holds true for long division. So I'm going to put in plus 0x plus 1. And as we do this problem, I think you'll see why I did that. So the first thing I would ask myself is, what times x makes x cubed? Oh, that'd be x squared, right? So when I distribute this to both, I'd get x cubed plus 2x squared. Now remember, we're subtracting, so I'm going to change these signs. This added up to 0. I now have negative 8x squared, and I bring down the plus 0x. which kind of seems weird right now, but you'll see why. Then I ask myself, what times x would make negative 8x squared? So negative 8x. When I distribute, remember this is going to distribute to both of these. When I distribute that, I get negative 8x squared, so that tells me I picked the right monomial, minus 16x. Remember again, we are subtracting, so we change these signs. So these again added up to 0, which is my goal, right? And I have 16x here, and then I'm going to bring down this 1. What times x makes 16x? Hopefully you see that that's 16. Again, I distribute, so I get 16x plus 32. Change my signs. And I get a negative 31 here. So when I have a negative 31, that's my remainder. So I'm going to add that up here. I'm going to say minus 31 over what you divided by, which is x plus 2. And that is the answer to my problem. You can check this if you wanted. It's a little bit harder with the remainder, so we don't often check those. I'd just go through and check my work again just because it takes a little bit of time to go through and do that. But if you wanted to try that, you sure could. So next, you guys are going to do number 3. So pause the video, and I want you guys to try number 3. I should hide that for a second. Pause the video, try number 3, and then I'll put the answer up there for you. Here's what I got for 3. So you might want to see that I did, let's do this, huh? That might make more sense to you based on how we did it before. You can see how that negative got distributed. If you have questions on any step of this one, it was really hard to have to put those zeros in there, right? So make sure you ask me tomorrow if you have questions on that one. Number 4 then we're going to do together. Number 4 is a little bit different because I have that 2 in red. In synthetic, this was a pain to have a number in front of that, a coefficient in front of that x. In long division, it's not really any different. We're still going to follow the same process all the way through. So I notice that I have every term represented. I've got the cube, the squared, the x, and nothing. So then I ask myself, what times 2x would make 8x cubed? So I'll pick 4x squared. So when I multiply, I get 8x cubed minus 4x squared. Change my signs. I now have 16x squared minus 4x. So when I take 2x times what equals 16x squared, I would say that'd be a positive 8x. So again, I distribute. I'd have 16x squared minus 8x. Change those signs. So I have 4x and I bring down the 6. 2x times what would make 4x? Well, times 2. So this would be 4x minus 2. Change those signs, and I get a negative 4 as my remainder. So that comes up here, negative 4 over what I divided by, so 2x minus 1. And there's my answer to number 4. Number 5 then. I have the same type of problem. I'm going to take 2x plus 1, and then 8x to the 4th. I see that I don't have an x cubed, so I'm going to go ahead and add 0x cubed minus 4x squared plus x plus 4. So as I start, I ask myself, you're always looking at this first term here, what times 2x would make 8x to the 4th? That would be 4x cubed. So I'd get 8x to the 4th plus 4x cubed. Again, I change my signs because I'm subtracting. So I have a negative 4x cubed, and I bring down that minus 4x squared. What times 2x would make negative 4x cubed? That would be negative 2x squared. So I distribute that. I get negative 4x cubed plus 2x squared. Again, I'm going to use my distribute that negative. So I'd have negative 6x squared. Oh, hold on. Right here. Did you see my mistake already? This I should have, when I distributed negative 2x squared times 1, I should have got negative 2x squared. Sorry. So then, when I change my signs, this is a plus, which makes this negative 2x squared. How's that look? Better? And bring down the x. So then what times 2x would make negative 2x squared? That'd be a negative x, and when I distribute I get negative 2x squared minus x. Change my signs. Looked like that was going to cancel, didn't it? But it doesn't, because now I have 2x and then plus 4. 2x times what equals 2x? So that'd be 1. When I distribute here, let me move down a bit, I would get 2x plus 1. Change my signs, and I get a 3 here. So my remainder always, I take this from what's left over when I've gone through all of them, and I write that as a positive or negative depending on that number. So this is positive, so I'm going to go plus 3 over what I originally divided by, 2x plus 1. And that's my answer. So you guys go ahead and try number 6, pause the video, and then I'll put that answer up for you. There's number 6. You go ahead and take a look at that. My answer's there. I'm just going to write my remainder up here so it's a little easier to see. And I don't have to show the whole thing. And if you have any questions on that, make sure you let me know tomorrow.